safe. It's okay for ANTIFA to be safe. It's okay for those doing the bidding of international violent drug cartels to be safe. But heaven forbid our ICE officers should be safe.
Thank you, Senator. Time has expired. Senator Gooden, you're recognized.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay. Welcome back. We're going to be jumping right into our stories for today's stream. We're starting out with President Trump's statement. Finally, he speaks up about his visit to the UN. All right, but I would like to start out by first of all saying, I tried to go live earlier, but I figured that I would wait and go live at the predetermined time that I promised that I'll be going live. I got very zealous and I really wanted to cover the Senate judiciary hearing with Bondi. I've been listening in. We might take a look at a clip that came up sometime this morning coming from that particular hearing, and very fiery clip. But I've been of the opinion for a while that these congressional hearings are theater for both parties. Both parties use it as a means to grandstand. I am yet to see anything come of these hearings. So we're going to jump into the stories. One, we're going to look at President Trump's remarks concerning the sabotage that he experienced during his visit to the UN. We're also going to look at the ANTIFA situation at Portland. There's some developments that came up and we're going to take a look at it. And then we'll look at the National Guard deployment to Chicago. We have certain things that are happening where the governor is threatening a lawsuit against the Trump administration, and we're going to jump into that. So we'll start out with this statement by Trump, where he leads into the sabotage at the UN.
Mr. President.
On the shutdown, Mr. President, the shutdown that occurred during your first term lasted 35 days.
Yeah.
How long do you expect this shutdown to go?
Well, you don't know. Look, I can say this, that it would have not happened except for the Democrats. The Democrats are very foolish. They've lost their way. And we have a new thing now. When you look at it's called crime. It's called absolute, as Biden would say. Well, I won't say what he would have said. Remember what he said? It's a three-letter word. No. Remember that one? Everybody say, what was that all about? He probably meant exclamation point or something after the word. But this is a five-letter word, crime. C-R-I-M-E. And we want to put it out and are putting it out, and they don't. They don't seem to care about it, but they do care. I believe that Pritzker and this mayor of Chicago that like to say about they don't have it under control. Not only is it not under control, it's the opposite. And I believe they're afraid. They're scared for their lives. I believe that the Portland people are scared. You look at what's happened with Portland over the years. It's a burning hellhole. And then you have a judge that lost her way, that tries to pretend that like there's no problem. Actually, she's not even saying that. There's a huge problem in Portland. I'll tell you what the problem is. Crime. Okay, crime. There's a huge problem in Chicago. It's called crime. And we want to put out the crime, and they want to inflame the crime. And why they want to, I don't know. But it could be that Pritzker is scared for his life. Yeah.
You appointed that judge on the UN. Do you have an update on the investigation into what happened to you at the UN last month? And also, what's your message to Americans who are concerned about your and your family's safety as you're very out in the public attending?
Yeah, I am out there. There's no question about it. Well, at the UN, we had a problem with the teleprompter. We had another problem that nobody has actually talked about. The people in the room didn't hear my speech. Did you know that? The people in the room, they didn't have any loudspeakers, and
that's crazy.
Didn't hear my speech. And I thought I made a really good speech. I mean, considering I didn't have the use of teleprompter, which is unusual. But I made a speech. I could have walked off the stage. I guess most people, Doug, I think most people would have just said, we'll see you in about a half an hour, right? But, they obviously turned off I think they turned off the teleprompter. But there was a reason that it didn't work. I actually know the reason. They didn't let the teleprompter person into the room. Okay, which is essentially the same thing. So I made a speech. It turned out to be a very good speech, got good reviews. I went out to the audience after the speech. I saw my wife. I said, how good was that speech? Was that unbelievable or what? She said, I didn't hear a word you said. I said, what do you mean? She was sitting in the...
That's crazy. Yeah.
I said, what do you mean? She said, you couldn't hear anything that you said. The speakers were turned off. So I think that's pretty bad stuff, right? You know, especially since we support most of the United Nations.
Yep.
And yet I still want to keep it in New York because I think the United Nations has tremendous potential. If properly run, the United States has tremendous potential. But think of this. I settled 7 wars. I never spoke to the United Nations about it. Not one of them. You look at, and those were wars that were raging a long time, and in many cases. And I settled 7.
Hey guys.
United, they didn't help me. They should be able to settle the wars. I shouldn't have to be settling the wars. Yeah, please.
I think last week you signed the security guarantees for Qatar.
Yeah.
Do you see any role for the Senate in that? Do they have to vote on that, or do you think?
Well, I wouldn't mind if they did. If they want to, they'd let me know. Nobody said that, but you know, Qatar has been very, very helpful to us.
All right, so let me chime in here. So when I watched the speech and I saw what was going on, I thought that there was sabotage going on, and I jumped on. I think I did a stream or I did a video. Okay, yeah, I did a stream during the speech, and I did point out the fact that I felt that there was sabotage. The next day, I found out that the escalator had equally been shut down when President Trump and Melania were heading up the escalator. He said it went up halfway during the speech, but when I watched the video, the escalator didn't even leave the floor, and it was shut down. And it was, you know, it's really interesting. Okay, when you're having conversations with people about these incidents, you look at the rioting at ICE facilities. You look at the assassination of Charlie Kirk. You look at President Trump's, the lawfare against President Trump, where for 4 years they tried to put him behind bars for the rest of his life. You see the obvious hypocrisy coming from the Democrats. At every turn, they come up with policies that are good for them. But when Republicans try to do the same things, they do a media tour claiming that these guys are a danger to democracy. The Democrats are the ones who attack free speech and censor anyone they don't agree with. And then when an on-air personality is suspended, not canceled, suspended for making an egregious lie of a statement about the assassination of Charlie Kirk, they take up arms to claim that it is an attack on free speech. The hypocrisy is so blatant. But when I see intelligent people step up and try to defend the indefensible, it makes me believe, I'm going to say it again, and it's a very, very crude way to say this, but I believe that there's witchcraft about. There's witchcraft going on, because where you have intelligent people, seemingly intelligent people, running around championing these policies that essentially will destroy civilization as we know it. And they're like, look, I'm a Christian. I wear it on my sleeve. I talk about it regularly, in my videos and on my stream. I don't believe that anyone would see the litany of policies that the Democrats have pushed in the last 15 years, since Obama through Trump and even till date, especially during the Biden years, see everything that they've done so far and believe that a Christian who submits to the rule of Jesus Christ can agree with these policies. I'll leave it there. So President Trump has gone through and he's explained that even within the hall, they turned off the speakers. All right. Now, he's said that he doesn't think he's going to take any action, where that he thinks that the UN can still be useful, and he still wants the United States to play host to the UN. I'm surprised that he said that. I'm surprised. All right. So before I jump forward, I want to say hi to those of you in the chat. If you're watching and you haven't jumped into the chat to say hi, please jump in and say hi. Let me know where you're watching from. Canary King, Good to see you as always. Greetings. Tara, great to see you as always. Tara says that Trump disses Biden any chance he gets. Yes, and I think that is who Trump is. What we need to know about Trump and what people don't realize is that Trump is first and foremost a New York businessman. New Yorkers have a dirty way of talking. They will, they take every advantage to say what is on their mind. All right. And as far as he's concerned, Joe Biden did a horrible job as president. So when President Trump talks about when he talks about his impression of Joe Biden, you just have to understand that it is basically the history that they share. And of course, they try to put him in jail for 4 years. All right, so we will go through this. Now, we will be looking at ANTIFA. Now, the ANTIFA development in Portland has been crazy. We've seen, I released a video last night, and I will be reviewing some of the things that I talked about last night, but there are a few things that came up today. But let me go through the chat because I like to engage in the chat. If you're watching, please don't feel left out. Jump in the chat and make your voice heard. Was that done on purpose? Yes, it was. I did a video, and it turns out that some of the people who work at the UN had been discussing doing that, turning off his teleprompter and turning off the escalator when he came to the UN. It was covered by the London Times. I played it already at during a previous stream. Please go back to my past streams and watch them. Let me know how I'm doing with my production because that software that was supposed to work great today. Well, I streamed privately for 3 hours last night and it worked perfectly. And then this morning I attempted to stream with the same thing and it crashed. So I wouldn't say it's witchcraft. I would say that there's something wrong with the software. I'll stay with my nice OBS for now until I figure out why that's happening. In the chat, they really sabotaged him. That is Canary King. Canary King, they did. And I'm surprised that President Trump is taking it the way he's taking it. I would have expected him to have gone, hammer and tongs on the UN because the United States pays a ton of money to the UN, supporting the UN. And to be honest, I don't know why they would do such a thing. Okay. It's crazy, but it's really the world that we live in today. We live in a world that is driven so much by people with ideologies that would rather see the world burn than to see things work because someone who holds to a different ideology is running things. It's insane. It's insane. It's insane. All right. And I've said it before. This is a new kind of tribalism or racism. I've said that racism is simply tribalism based on the color of your skin. I come from a country where we have over 10 different tribes, and each tribe feels like they are the best thing since sliced bread. And when you have tribes that feel that way about themselves, it's great to love where you come from and who you are and your language. But when you begin to make decisions based on that exclusively, you ruin your country. In my country of origin, Nigeria, there are over 10 tribes. There are 3 major tribes that are the largest in population. And these 3 tribes have a funny dynamic. What happens is if somebody from one tribe, I wouldn't call the names, those of you from Nigeria know, if someone from one tribe gets into office in a company or in government, what they then do is they begin to fill up the slots or the roles in that company with people from their tribe, whether those people are qualified or not. It's really what we see today happening in blue cities. You have when you look at the government in blue cities, it is filled with activists. When you look at companies in Silicon Valley, right now you have gaming companies that are filled to the brim with people who hold to certain ideologies. So when you look at gamers, for example, when Charlie Kirk was murdered, you had people, who were celebrating on the social media account of the gaming company. Right now, companies, there's no separation between these ideologies and what the gaming company stands for. And you're beginning to see how it affects productivity or excellence, because the games that are being produced by these companies are crap. Just to be honest, they're crap. They don't work the way they used to. And that's what you see in countries like Nigeria. When you fill up infrastructure or roles with people who are just from your tribe, the only qualification is that they are from your tribe. You fill up the place with people who are incompetent, who don't work, who don't put in the effort they need to put in order to get the job done. And then the country blows up. And guess who they blame? They blame the devil. I kid you not. We had a minister of power, okay, because Nigeria has an awful electricity shortage, okay. We had a minister of power, and he was slated to speak to our version of Congress to answer questions about why he hadn't yet solved the power problem of Nigeria. And his answer was, it is evil spirits. I kid you not. But the problem really is that the corruption within the country, driven by tribalism, has created a failed, I wouldn't call it, well, I would say that it's almost a failed state now, but it's not exactly a failed state. But things just don't work. Infrastructure doesn't work. Things that should work just don't work. So these are the kinds of things that we're dealing with. Okay, so give me a moment. We're streaming on my backup channel as well. I just recalled that I don't have the live chat pulled up. I can see the live chat on the main channel. I don't see the live chat on the backup channel. I just want to be sure that I'm being fair. Just give me a moment. I want to be sure I'm being fair. Let's see. Okay, so we don't have any chat yet on the backup channel. Jolly good. All right, so let me take the other comments coming from, Canary King did mention, the teleprompter, and then they also turned off the South African president's mic when he was talking about Israel and the genocide in Gaza. And that begins to make me ask some questions, because for a couple of years, the UN appeared to be siding with Hamas. And then when you have someone standing on the floor of the UN calling out Israel and his mic is turned off, what happened there? So if anyone who's watching knows what happened, please let me know in the chat. I'm watching the two platforms, so please bear with me. I enjoy engaging with you guys because this is about us conversating, all right? It's not about me creating the content. It's about us having a conversation. I will still create my regular content. Like you saw last night, I released a new video. So I will still do that. That is content exclusively for me to put together ideas and match it with the news, or let me say, go to the news and then say what I think. But here we are exchanging ideas. So thanks for the comments in there. Okay, so Canary King also says, Trump needs to follow up and make sure the people involved are fired. Well, Trump doesn't sound like he's being vindictive. He says he hasn't said anything. Well, let's go back and hear what he said exactly, because he didn't sound like he was going after anyone in the UN. He just says that the UN is still important.
They're scared for their lives. I believe.
Oh, okay. No, that's Chicago.
With the teleprompter, we had another problem that nobody has actually talked about. The people in the room didn't hear my speech. Did you know that? The people in the room, they didn't have any loudspeakers and they didn't hear my speech.
But to be honest, it sounds like a sounds like a conspiracy because his teleprompter, first of all, the escalator didn't work, the teleprompter didn't work, the speaker systems didn't work. The people in the press booth, I also heard the people in the press booth who were supposed to be hearing his speech in the press booth to kind of give a report of his speech had their volumes turned down low. All right. Then he also says that the person who was meant to man the teleprompter to put up his speech wasn't allowed into the room. Look, if it smells like a duck, I don't know how ducks smell, but if it smells like a duck, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, it is a duck. There was wholesale sabotage happening at the UN. The UN has been ideologically captured. Let's tell the truth about it and simply move on. All right. I feel like the UN has outlived its youthfulness, its usefulness. President Trump thinks that the UN still has some use. I don't know what use the UN currently has. Okay, someone let me know what the UN is useful for today when they don't, like right now there's conflict breaking out everywhere in the world. They haven't done squat. Okay, they have failed in the number one purpose for the creation of the UN. Trump needs to follow up, make sure, well, he hasn't said anything about firing people. We're going to move on to the next story, but let's just, we'll talk about this.
Considering I didn't have the teleprompter.
Sorry, I'm going to skip forward.
Or anything that you said. The speakers were turned off. So I think that's pretty bad stuff, right? You know, especially since we support most of the United Nations.
Yeah.
And yet I still want to keep it in New York.
Yeah.
I think the United Nations has tremendous potential. If properly run, the United States has tremendous potential. But think of this.
Oh, he slipped and said the United States.
I settled 7 wars. I never spoke to the United Nations about it.
Look at that.
One of them.
And that's the problem. The United Nations hasn't had a hand in world peace in a long time. When was the last time the United Nations had a hand in ending a war? When? And this is like long before the 90s. Even the conflict with Bosnia and Herzegovina, all they did was send the UN peacekeepers. It essentially didn't end anything as far as I was concerned, unless I'm mistaken, because I was really young when all that was happening. So what good is the UN if they can't do the number one thing they were created to do?
You look at, and those were wars that were raging a long time, and in many cases. And I settled 7. I never heard from the United. They didn't help me. They should be able to settle the wars. I shouldn't have to be settling the wars. Yeah, please.
I think last week you signed the security guarantees for Qatar.
Yeah.
Do you see any role for the Senate in that? Do they have
All right.
to vote on
Well, I wouldn't mind if they did. If they want to, they'd let me know. Nobody said that, but Qatar has been very, very helpful to us in this process, and I think you'll find that. I think maybe the most influential, very influential, very strong. With
all right, give me a second. I want to do something.
And, Turkey's likewise.
I hope it works.
I mean, honestly, UAE, Saudi Arabia.
Hope it works.
Everybody's been helpful. I just spoke today with the King of Jordan, and he's been terrific too. I can't think of any country that's been negative about this. This is why it should happen. I mean, everybody wants it to happen, and usually when everybody, including I think Hamas. And when they want it to happen, it's going to happen.
James Comey is being arraigned on Wednesday, obviously after his indictment. Are you worried that your own statements calling for his prosecution could help him actually in his defense of this case?
No, I think he's a crooked guy. He's a dirty cop. Comey, I think he's a dirty cop. He's recognized by many people to be a dirty cop and dishonest guy. So all I have to do is, I mean, I have nothing to do with the case. I just say,
but you called on Bondi to prosecute him and oppose him.
No, I don't call anybody. You know what? I'm allowed to do that if I wanted to do that. But Comey's a crooked guy. He has been for years. and he got caught. Look, he lied. This is just a simple case. He totally lied. And then he confirmed the lie on, I guess, numerous occasions, or at least one occasion. He confirmed the lie. He said, that's what I said, and I stand by it. And, you know, I mean, the guy, and he didn't say, to the best of my knowledge. He didn't say, well, I don't remember.
All right. So he stepped into the Comey situation.
And a very important statement concerning him. And he got caught in an outright lie. And that's why a group of people, it wasn't me that voted, they voted to indict him. But he's a crooked guy, in my opinion, and we'll find out. The court's going to determine that in a little while, I guess, yeah.
President, do you expect to announce farm relief this week?
Yeah, I'm going to do some farm stuff this weekend. Yeah, please.
The Navy yesterday celebrating
It was unbelievable.
their 250th. Can you talk about that? And as we get closer to America's 250th, you've initiated a prayer initiative as well.
Yeah.
Talk to me about both of those events and why they're so important, particularly the prayer initiative going forward to the...
Well, we have, and we're dealing, as you know, with all of the different, and not just evangelicals, Christians. We're dealing with lots of different faiths, religions, and I've felt for a long time that, you know, if a country doesn't have religion, doesn't have faith, doesn't have God, it's going to be very hard to be a good country. You know, there's no reason to be good. I want to be good because you want to prove to God that you're good, so you go to that next step, right? Mm-hmm. So that's very important to me. I think it's really very important. And yesterday was amazing. We went out. We went to the naval base, the largest in the world, actually, and I saw things.
All right. So I just wanted to put up the live chat from the main channel.
And just
you guys, please just post. If I see activity on the backup channel, if you're on Crossroads, that's the backup channel. If I see activity there, then I'm going to figure out a way to put your live chat on the screen as well, so that we can keep track of it.
Pilots where they can land. You know,
all right.
The aircraft carriers look massive.
So let's look at.
Middle of, like,
so let's wrap up the conversation on the UN.
Off the coast of Virginia.
I'm going to just
it's sitting in a big ocean.
Drop the volume a little.
And it was pretty calm yesterday, but it's still a little bit testy, right?
Okay, hold on. I'm going to just pause. All right. So I'm going to pause. All right. So the channel is going to be, this live stream is going to be more of interactive. So I'm responding to the chat from the main channel. If you're on the backup channel, please post your observations and your comments. And you can also answer the poll. Okay, there's a poll that you can answer. So I'm going to start taking the questions and the chat from the main channel. And then if you have any on the backup channel, I'm watching you on a different screen. If I see activity, then I pull you over onto the screen. Okay, deal? All right, so introduce yourself, tell us where you're watching from, and then let's go. Now, here's what I'm getting on the main feed, okay? Employees at the UN need to follow protocol. Ken is saying so. Every nation and viewpoint should be allowed to be expressed. Yes, and when people feel like they aren't being heard, just like Germany back in the 20s and the early 30s, they felt that they weren't being heard. The League of Nations failed to make them feel like they were heard, and Germany decided that they were going to go off on their own and get justice the way they felt they needed justice. That opened up the door for Hitler to do what he did. Okay, so when there is no conversation happening, and when the UN blocks conversation, then you begin to see rogue states do whatever it is they're doing. And the UN, essentially, in my opinion, has failed in that regard, just like the League of Nations failed in the 30s. It was a crazy insult to the United States. How dare these low-level employees sabotage discourse? I'm reading the chat, okay, not my words, the chat. Okay, so the problem with low-level employees is that they think that they are high-level employees. In Nigeria, we have security guards. We call them gatemen. Their job is just to open the gate and shut the gate. They don't do much of security, but just opening gates and shutting gates. Because they have those responsibilities, they feel like they own the place. If you're a stranger and a nobody, they lock you out, they make you feel small. That's what they do. Translate that to what happened at the UN. These guys feel they had one job. get the president's teleprompter going, get the escalator going, but they felt like it was their time to make a political statement, and they did that. So that's what happens when low-level people who don't have the concept of how a civilized system works. When you have activists working in places like the UN, that's what you get. Okay, so they, as far as they are concerned, they did something noble by embarrassing the president of the United States. You know, and the United States being their host, they couldn't care less. They just did what they felt they were doing to stick it to President Trump. And for an international body like that to have activists within their ranks who hate the sitting president of the United States so much that they are willing to risk their jobs shows you that, one, these people have a mental illness. Two, this is all about political ideology. And three, they don't care if the world burns as long as they get their ideas out there. Because what President Trump said that day was very important. The things he said were very important. They shut off his speaker. They didn't let the person who was meant to man his teleprompter get into the room. They turned down the mics to the press pool so that journalists couldn't hear what he said clearly. So that opens up a whole new can of worms of people misrepresenting President Trump's statements at the UN. He's speaking to world leaders and they turn down his audio at the press booth so that the journalists can't hear what he's saying. So you can't even blame the journalists when they put out news reports that are not accurate. And then finally, they turned down his volume on the House. The delegates he was speaking to didn't even hear what he said. So there's a whole lot. There's a whole lot going on with the UN and what they did to President Trump that we could keep talking about this over and over and over again. It is dangerous what they did. As far as I'm concerned, it is dangerous. And like I said, the fact that the League of Nations didn't have Germany talking and speaking out their concerns and their gripes for years caused the Second World War. And now that we have the UN and employees within the UN actively muting world leaders when they are speaking about issues that they care about. Now, whether the South African president was speaking sense about Gaza or not is neither here nor there. Let them speak. Let them say their piece. Okay, that's what the UN is for. And then you have delegates, not able to hear him because they shut off his microphone. You had President Trump have the incident with his mic and the speakers and the teleprompter. You had Benjamin Netanyahu getting up to speak and delegates walked out. The UN has failed. That is my position. It's an unpopular position because the UN has been around longer than most of us have been alive. But has it done what it is meant to do in the world? All right. If you think the UN is useful, put it in the chat. I don't want to pause to put up a poll. All right. I would love to do that, but I'm scared that you run away. Those of you who are watching, I'm seeing that, I am, what the Democrats say, there's a fragile democracy. I'm running a fragile live stream. I don't know if my viewers would run away if I start trying to put up a poll and be silent for a while. Okay. So it's important we call it out for what it is. Okay. Tara says, I agree with Canary King. If it is not addressed, the insults will get worse. It's already gotten worse. Look, on the global stage, it has been open season for President Trump and by extension, the United States. What people in the United States don't realize, especially those people who hate President Trump so much and hate America so much that they would burn their country's flag in the name of free speech. You guys get up and scream about how burning your flag is an expression of free speech. The rest of the world is looking at you like, really, really, that is unpatriotic, and that is a mental illness. If you cannot see how symbolic the burning of a flag is, You're either ignorant or you just hate your country. All right? That is, it's one or the other. It is not an expression of free speech. The way you engage in free speech is to talk. All right? Is to talk. You talk about the things you have a problem with. You don't go burning things down. If anyone tells you that burning anything down is an expression of free speech, we have a problem. What I'm doing right now is speech. If I turned on my camera and all I did was burn paper, that's not speech. I don't think so. Am I wrong? When people begin to redefine the meaning of words, that's where we have a break in communication. Up means something different for me than it does for you. And that's why in my videos, I've started saying we live in an upside down world where up is down and down is up. And then on top of that, you live in a crazy world where if I have an opinion, you feel like my opinion defines whether I deserve to live or die. And that's a huge problem. The West was built on the foundation of, first of all, the value for human life. And then, in progression, free speech. Free speech. If you can't speak, you can't express yourself. If you can't express yourself, you can't create as a community. You can't create. Speech is the first thing that we have that gives us the ability to communicate with each other, to communicate vision, to communicate plans. That's what we have. I'm sorry for this rant, but I'm fed up with the UN. I think the UN has outlived its purpose. If you agree, put it in the chat. If you don't agree, give me your thoughts on it. It's not an argument, it's just a thought. I think it's outlived its usefulness. The people who work in the UN are nothing short of activists. They filled up their ranks with activists, and I don't think it is helpful for the UN to continue to work that way. But I don't think they're going to change. Okay? Everything has turned woke now. So the UN is woke. Everything is woke. I don't think they have any hope. It's like Hollywood. Oh gosh, I'm going on a tirade now. Hollywood, I don't think Hollywood is redeemable. Hollywood is not redeemable. Hollywood has fallen so far down the rabbit hole that it is impossible to redeem Hollywood. When I say redeem, I mean you literally have to swap out whole teams and whole companies. The entire infrastructure has been taken over by leftist ideology. It has. Let's call it what it is. So essentially, people who are conservatives, who have common sense, need to go and build something else. If you want to go in and infiltrate Hollywood, Hollywood was infiltrated over a period of 70 years. We don't have 70 years. We don't. The acceleration of societal decay is so quick and so fast that in 70 years, we may not have a planet. We literally have people who want to reduce global population because the world can't sustain too many people. And you might be thinking, well, I guess they're right. Well, I believe they're wrong. Why do I believe that? Again, I am a Christian. I'm a strong believer in the fact that God created everything we see. I'm a strong believer in the fact that he created a self-sustaining ecosystem that heals itself. It heals itself. What people call global warming and climate change is the world rebalancing. That's all it is. They've tried to convince us that the world will end in 50 years, and 50 years have come and gone. They said the sea levels would rise and Europe will be flooded under 20 feet of water. They said that in the 60s. They said it would happen by the year 2000. It hasn't happened. The sea levels haven't even risen it hasn't even risen. So what are we talking about? We're listening to people try to dictate how we should live, who have constantly sold us lies. And we shouldn't be scared to just step up and just say, look, you guys are lying. We are not going to believe you anymore. It's really as simple as that. There's no grace. There's no, let's give them a second chance. They have had all the chances in the world to get it right. Bill Gates, major. I'm going to finish up this chat, then we'll go on to Portland, okay? We'll go on to Portland. All right. Let's see. Tara says, yeah, it was sabotage, clearly sabotage at the UN. Canary King, did you hear the Ghana president's speech? I didn't. Sadly, I'm sorry, I didn't. All right. Should we play the Ghana president's speech? You guys who are watching on the backup channel or on the main channel, should we listen to it or should we just move on? Because these are the three stories. But since we're talking about the UN and about the fact that speech is dying on the floor of the UN, maybe it might be a good idea. Let me know in the chat, should we play the speech by the president of Ghana to see why they turned off his mic? I tried looking for that speech and I think I found a video that was someone kind of repurposing the video. So it means that we're going to have to look for it and that might take time. So let's just move on, okay? Let's see. Comey brought it on himself. He openly lied to Congress and then it's been found out that he lied. And now people are trying to defend him to say that President Trump is weaponizing the justice system against his enemies. That's not true. If you commit a crime, you are an enemy to the legal system, not to the sitting president. The sitting president is simply saying they committed a crime, prosecute him because there is a crime. And then a grand jury found him liable, said that, okay, he should be indicted for this because with the evidence presented to the grand jury, it was found that he should be prosecuted. Comey isn't being persecuted because he's the enemy of Donald Trump. A grand jury found that he should be prosecuted. Bill Gates is a well-known proponent of population control, yes, and they want us to eat bugs, own nothing, and be happy, while the billionaires keep all the. Look, you can't unsee this once you start seeing it. You can't. When people tell you who they are, believe them. When they tell you we want fewer human beings on the planet, and they get into their private jets, fly around all over the world to tell you how to live your life, how you shouldn't emit carbon while they are flying around in jets. They don't want you to drive your car, but they can fly around in jets. They want to control you. This is a strange live stream. I thought I would just come in and just give the nice talking points. But I'm fired up today for some reason. Maybe it's you guys in the chat that are firing me up with all of these comments. It's important that we learn how to tell the truth and tell the truth without being angry or enraged. Like you can be angry, but learn to tell the truth with a level head. And that's what I'm trying to do here. All right, so let's jump to the next story. And the next story is going to be another, like all three stories are upsetting. I'll just tell you the truth. All three stories are upsetting to me. All right. So this is we've switched over to Portland. All right. We switched over to Portland. Let me set this up for you. All right. So Portland has had daily protests in front of the ICE facility for the last 100 days. And the Portland Police Department has refused to enforce the law. They would rather arrest conservatives who have come to observe things. Now, this report says, unbelievable footage. I witnessed Portland PD giving advice to Antifa terrorists on how to avoid federal troops being allowed into the city after the temporary restraining order against President Trump was upheld by activist judge. He did this even after hearing Antifa wishing death on an individual and MAGA. Portland PD is owned by Antifa. All of these traitors need to be arrested and prosecuted. Now, I'm going to play the video. We're going to play the video, listen, and then we'll just react to it, okay?
It's okay. It's all right.
Okay, if you don't want to listen, real quick. So the judge granted the TRO. Hey, I'm the one who got stabbed in 2020 by you guys.
I hope he gets stabbed again. You ain't got the balls to do it, though.
That's a death threat.
You ain't got the balls to do it.
That's a death threat.
You ain't got the balls to do it, so keep yapping your mouth like a
That's a death threat. Why don't you go arrest me?
It's harder for the judge.
You arrest me for
argue
protesting in the
that,
street.
hey, we have a good reason why we actually need them. So that's why we're asking people to get out of the street.
Is it illegal to get out of the street?
They could arrest you, but
Hey,
we're asking you guys voluntarily, let's just get on the sidewalks. Because if a car comes through and hits somebody, it's a better way for the government to say we definitely need the feds.
And we do definitely need the feds. We definitely need the feds in here. Because your mayor is terrible. It's giving you terrible orders.
All right, so...
You should be able to work with ICE. You should be able to work with ICE.
All right, so let's be very careful. And I'm not scared of finding content that says one thing, but we break it down to find out what it's actually saying. Let's be careful with reporting that we get from the left or from the right. This reporter says he's advising them on how to avoid. He's making it sound like he's giving them advice on how to avoid federal troops. This is sad, but I will call him out. I'll say no. He was advising them on how to avoid escalating the situation where federal troops would then be called into, the area, because if the roads are blocked and someone gets run over by the convoy that's coming in, things will escalate. That's what he was saying. Did I miss something? Okay, so when I give these reports, I want to be as truthful as possible. However, what is true, okay, is the reporting by Andy No. Andy No has tons of experience with Antifa. So we're going to listen to his reporting, because people have said that Antifa doesn't exist. We have reporting coming from the mainstream media saying Antifa is an ideology, it's not an organization. But Antifa does exist, because Antifa doesn't crack open your skull and attack you repeatedly while they are demonstrating or rioting. Okay, and this happened to Andy.
Because you're also a journalist, and it seems like the police are on the wrong side.
So speaking through my own experience, unfortunately in Portland, if you are assaulted by Antifa, your only recourse is to basically let them beat you to a pulp, potentially kill you, or if you take steps to defend yourself effectively, you may be prosecuted. And that's happened to another independent journalist back in 2016, Michael Strickland, before me. He was convicted of felonies because he had a firearm that he brandished when a mob was pursuing him. So for nearly a decade now, the Portland police has been under immense pressure from either federal government or state government, local government, to basically not go hard on Antifa rioters. The ACLU and many other leftist, activist legal groups have filed lawsuits, and judges have at various times placed restrictions on the ability for them to police. So for years now, basically, the Portland police go after the low-hanging fruit. So the organized mass Antifa, like those who tried to kill me, beat me, who beat my colleague Katie Davis Court, they don't go after them. These people.
Yeah, so an ideology doesn't beat people. Okay? An ideology doesn't systematically attack people who come in to observe demonstrations or protests or riots with cameras, because they don't want to be filmed. These guys don't want to be filmed. They don't want to be caught on film doing what they're doing.
People are masked. They have a plan to get away. They have a hideout place. They have a car that they escape in. They go after people who are like Nick Sorter or others who are there, who comply, who don't have their faces covered.
Yeah.
And that is the unfortunate reality of what it's like to be a journalist in Portland or to be a law-abiding citizen there.
When you're a law-abiding citizen in a city that is lawless, right, you feel very unsafe. You feel like a fish out of water. And you basically feel like you're not welcome. And I think that's the point. Most of these cities that have leadership where they want certain ideologies to thrive, they want the law to be against people who keep the law. So when you go out in a protest and the rioters attack you, and instead of the rioters being arrested, they arrest the victim, then it's a clear signal to you that you're not welcome. Have you ever seen those movies, those westerns where a stranger comes to town and then he goes to the bar, he gets harassed and beaten up, he fights back, and then the sheriff, who was sitting right there on a different table, gets up and arrests him when it was clear that he was provoked by the guy who met him at the counter. And when they take him to jail, the guy has a conversation and says, "Hey, how come this is the way you are applying the law?" And then the sheriff says, "We don't take too kindly to strangers here." You know, it's a way to intimidate you into silence or into leaving. Okay, so ideologies don't crack open your skull. Okay. There was a video that I did, I think it was a live stream I did a couple of weeks back, and I broke down the similarities between the Nazi Party and the Democrat Party. The Nazi Party had, when they were not in power, they had this group called the Brown Shirts. The Brown Shirts were the militant wing of the Nazi Party. It was their job to intimidate the political opponents of the Nazi Party. They were the ones responsible for the Night of Broken Glass, the Kristallnacht. That's what it was called in German. What it was they went into the city and destroyed the businesses owned by the Jews. And then when the Nazi Party came into power, they essentially wiped out the Brown Shirts and replaced them with the SS. That's what happened. History. So when you see the modus operandi of Antifa, they look very much like the Brown Shirts to me. Okay, let me know if you agree. Do your research on the Brown Shirts. When a political party has an enforcement arm that is not the police, that is not legal law enforcement, and their job is to intimidate anyone that doesn't agree with them, like we're seeing Antifa doing in Portland, then we have an issue. And then when you have a party that runs the media, let me tell you who did that. There's this dude called Benito Mussolini. Benito Mussolini started, he was a soldier, but then again, when he was done with serving as a soldier, he bought a newspaper. All right? He bought a newspaper. He used that newspaper to spread misinformation that he wanted the people to hear in order to sow the seeds of discontent. And then eventually he used that to ride his political ambitions into office. That's called fascism. When you use the tools of commerce and government to your own ends. Who's doing that most of the time? It's the Democrats. The Democrats are doing the exact things that they are accusing the Republicans of doing. They control the wheels of media. They use media to change public sentiment. And then when public sentiment swings their way, they take office. Okay? That's a fascist playbook. So you see both the fascist playbook and the Nazi playbook all melded into the Democrat Party. I'm only making an observation, guys. Don't shoot the messenger. All right. Let me know in the chat what you think. We're streaming live. This is live. All right. I want to see your comments in the chat and then we can talk. Now, yesterday I watched the press conference at the White House. And there was a lovely exchange by Caitlin Collins with Carolyn Levitt, where Caitlin Collins claimed that there was no violence happening in Portland. And here's that exchange.
I would encourage you as a reporter to go on the ground and to take a look at it for yourself, because there's been many members of the press, not press in this room, but independent journalists, some of whom we'll be inviting to the White House very soon to share their stories, because they have been in the middle of these riots and they have witnessed the anarchy that is taking place night after night. It's on video. You should play it on your show. You have a great opportunity in prime time on CNN to show your audience. Yeah, but you're probably talking to partisan Democrat officials who are opposed to everything this president does.
Now, I don't know how you can see the footage coming out of Portland, and I don't mean footage from Fox News. I don't watch footage from Fox News. There are citizen journalists who have been on the ground outside the ICE facility at Portland for the last 100 days, live streaming on the ground. And you know what? It's stunning that mainstream media hasn't caught on to what's happening. It's stunning.
Should also ask the people who live in Portland. We've actually heard from many members of the community who have said that this is complete civil disobedience. It's a mess. It's been loud. It's been troubling for neighbors in the community who are just trying to live peacefully. And these people are not there to peacefully protest. They are there to cause mayhem and havoc. I would encourage you as a reporter.
All right, so that is Carolyn Levitt telling CNN, please play this footage on your show. Now, in spite of her best efforts, CNN will not play this on their show. This is Portland. All right, and this is back in June. Guys, this is June. So what you're hearing is fireworks. The rioters throw fireworks at the DHS ICE agents, okay? And here's the trick. What they're doing is the fireworks are a strategy to force the agents to fire on the protesters or the rioters. They are trying to create another summer of love. They desperately want a casualty. So that's the video. CNN will not play this video. They won't. They will avoid playing it because they have a narrative to sell. They have a narrative to sell. We've covered this already, I guess. All right. Now, there's the people are burning flags. I mentioned my thoughts on flag burning earlier. I'm not going to repeat it. But people are burning flags in Portland. And as a result of that activity, there have been people who have been attacked. There was someone on his crew who was injured. I'll use that term. I don't want to get dinged by YouTube. He was injured in his back with a sharp object. Okay. So President Trump, when he signed his executive order about flag burning, he said that usually when the American flag is being burned, there's a surge of violence that follows. And that is it's observed that happens. Okay. After Nick Sauter put out a burning flag during this past weekend, he was mobbed by a group of ANTIFA militants and shoved into a ditch. And instead of the Portland PD to arrest the people who attacked him, guess who they arrested? I'll give you three choices. 3 tries. They arrested the guy who got pushed into the ditch. Okay. So we have things like this happening, and we have incidents like last night. A flag was being burned. Nick and his team went in to save the American flag. And then one of them gets attacked from behind with a sharp object. So it is interesting to watch and to see how how there's a correlation and how President Trump was right about the connection between flag burning and violence. All right, so let's move on to the next story. What the National Guard is meant to be sent to Chicago. Okay. I'm going to leave this video for last. I think I'll leave it. Should I play it now? All right, I'll play this one now. I'm not going to finish it. This is a profanity-laced commentary from a citizen in Chicago, someone who says he's a citizen in Chicago. I'm going to be very careful not to claim that something that we hear on a video is actually true. Okay, but this person claims that they are a citizen. And of course, you have someone who is speaking, complaining about what's happening in Chicago, about children being dragged out of bed and zip-tied. We're going to look at a video that talks about babies being zip-tied. There's a picture that is meant to show a baby being zip-tied. All right? And they claim that that's what ICE is doing. We're going to prove whether that is true or false. Okay? Now, let's watch this. We might not finish this video. It's about 3 minutes. It might be too long to finish. But let's listen to this account.
They detained American citizens, children in zip ties.
Okay, this is low for some reason. Let me see. It's low. So give me a second to try and boost this. Let me see if I can boost this a little. Let me see if I can boost it a little. It's honestly, it's maxed out. Goodness. Let's see. What else can I do? Let's see if this works.
They detained American citizens. They had children in zip ties.
See, we ain't finna do this shit.
All right.
Goofy asshole. I'm from Chicago. I stay about 2 minutes from where that shit happened, where they raided that building. Did they detain everybody in the building? According to the news report, yeah. Yeah, they gotta clear the building. You think they finna let motherfuckers stay in their apartment while they getting illegals out the other apartments? And they ain't motherfucking cleared the whole bit? That's a safety threat. Hey, we not listening to these motherfuckers. We is not listening to no motherfucker that's trying to block out the sun like they the moral compass or like they our motherfucking central nervous system brain. Like, bitch, you don't think for us? Think for yourself, ho.
All right, so first off, there's a standard procedure when clearing buildings. The building has to be cleared. Everyone has to be taken out of the building because it's a public safety threat. If any of the people who the law enforcement is going after happens to hold anyone in the building hostage, that's a safety threat. The building needs to be cleared. You have people creating these videos trying to not second guess, but frame standard procedure as if it is a Gestapo technique being implemented on American citizens. So that is untrue. Now, this guy goes on to break down how they feel about crime and the involvement of the National Guard in Chicago. He goes on to talk about how he voted for Trump and so on. And I don't think that we need to watch the whole video. Now, this is the video that tickles me. All right. So you have tons of videos like this showing up on social media, accusing the Trump administration of unleashing ICE on the general population, of zip tying children. Oh, the children. Oh, President Trump is being racist. Oh, the horror. And then you have people who grab this. And yes, look, let me tell you something. if you believe that the people talking to you on mainstream media are telling you the truth, you will do what this guy did. He's not a bad person for creating this video. He saw a post on social media, and I'm talking about this person in the frame now. He saw a post on social media, and like all good people, he is reacting to what he saw. He's seeing someone in uniform, zip tying an infant, and he loses his mind. So let's listen to what he has to say, and then we will find out if a child was actually zip tied in Chicago.
I want you to really break this down to me like I'm 10 years old and tell me why ICE agents zip tying black babies in Chicago, because I can't for the life of me understand why this happened. Why was this necessary? These are...
So I seen this video and it's all over TikTok and Instagram. So I had to do my research. And what did I find?
So this is the original video.
That picture, which is my video of me and my son playing cops and robbers. Literally, this is us.
So let's go back, okay? So this video is of this black father who happens to be a law enforcement officer playing with his kid. He and his kid are playing cops and robbers. Someone sees this. Look, I guarantee you. Okay, no guarantees. But I would assume, yeah. So this is the video, okay? And this frame was cropped out, removing the commentary, the caption, explaining what was going on. This was a father who is in law enforcement playing cops and robbers with his son. And then someone on social media lies and puts out this photo on the internet. I have these conversations regularly with people, and they're like, oh, how about this thing that we saw on social media? And then I tell them, okay, can I see the video? Because do you know what? Many people don't do their own research. They see something on social media and then they freak out. And then they say how horrible that thing was and how the people who did said thing are horrible people. But we need to learn how to do research. We need to do research. If someone sends you a video, then figure out, okay, did this actually happen? Why did it happen? And then get your own answers, do your own research. But no, they cropped out, like, this is evil, okay? It's evil because when you crop out a photo, this photo was taken intentionally from this frame. And you can see that they intentionally cut out the caption to make it look like a law enforcement officer in Chicago was zip tying babies. And why would they do this? You're like, Crossroads, why would they do this? Why? Why would anyone do this? To frame a narrative. They need you to be so upset that you stop using your head. They need you so upset that you believe that law enforcement under the Trump administration is evil. That what the Democrats are saying is true. That these people are evil. They want to put black people in chains and restart slavery. And when I hear people say stuff like that, I recently heard someone who I believed was meant to be very educated say that to me. And at that point, when he said that, I knew I was no longer talking to someone who was informed. I just decided, well, it's done. He sends me stuff to watch. I don't watch them because he's not using his higher faculties to break down these stories. He's meant to do his own research. You do your own research. You're watching me, you're watching this video, you're watching this live stream. Do your own research. How do you do your own research? I'm glad you asked. We're going to do our own research on this particular story. All right. Now, I'm going to answer the chat after this story. I'm going to go through the chat, okay, right after I'm done with this story. All right, so keep the chat coming. If you're on the backup channel, new channel, you guys on the backup channel, you guys are silent. You guys love being silent. Maybe you're at work, and that's fine. So here's Governor Pritzker. Governor Pritzker is planning. This is his response about Trump sending in the National Guard. All right, and then his plans. Let me make sure I don't blow out your speakers because I had to increase the volume. I'm sorry about that. I had to increase the volume on that feed. So let me be nice so I don't blow your speakers. All right, let's go.
Let me ask you just first about this call to your fellow governors around the country. What are you asking them to do here to support you?
Well, let's start with we should stand as one against the idea that Donald Trump has the ability to call up our National Guard against our will. I want to remind you that just last year, Joe Biden tried to call up National Guard, federalize them, to take Air National Guard and move them into the Space Force. And all
right, I want you to pay attention. This is what they do. And when I say they, I mean anyone who is trying to switch out facts, tell you one thing, they set up one thing, then they bring up another incident that kind of looks like that thing and try to tell you they're the same thing. Okay? What is he talking about? First of all, Joe Biden tried to federalize federalize the National Guard of all the states and meld the National Guard into Space Force. That is not the same thing that President Trump is trying to do. It's not the same thing. That incident was the federal government trying to co-opt the National Guard into a new department. That was not constitutional. All of the state governors broke out and said, no, it can't happen because this is the National Guard for each state. You can't co-opt them into a new department. And they all stood together and agreed. Governor Pritzker is trying to say that President Trump deploying the National Guard for an emergency in a different state is the same thing. It is not. They are carrying out the National Guard functions the way the National Guard was meant to be carried out. I'm going to show you how to do research on things like this. I'm going to show you. I'm not just talking. I'm going to show you how to do research on this, but I need you to learn how to pause because when they talk, they're hoping, they're praying that you don't pause, that you don't think for yourself. They're praying that while they're talking and triggering you with all of these things, because they know what they're doing. He brings out one fact. Joe Biden tried it and everyone said no. Oh, they did? And then he comes to the next statement and says, and now Trump is doing it and none of the Republican governors are opposing him. Even Greg Abbott. Let's keep going.
50 governors signed onto a letter, including, I might add, Greg Abbott from
There you go.
saying that it was improper for the President of the United States to call on governors to either send their National Guard or to federalize the National Guard so that the President could use them however.
That is not what he said. If you follow the story, and I want you to go follow the story, go do your own research. I'm not going to do your homework for you. Go do your own research. What was President Joe Biden trying to do? He was trying to co-opt the National Guard and convert them into Space Force. What did the governor say? No. What did Greg Abbott say? Greg Abbott says you can't do this. And what is this? Take the National Guard and convert them into operatives of Space Force. That was the conversation being had. What Pritzker has just said is Greg Abbott said to Joe Biden, you can't do this thing that President Trump is doing. That's what these guys just lie.
He wanted to. Now, this year, of course, Greg Abbott is a tool of Donald Trump. He's his lackey, and he is, in fact, doing exactly what Donald Trump wants and going against exactly what Greg Abbott said he would do last year. So
he has successfully. So what he just did is that he reframed the facts. He took the framing of one incident that happened, adjusted one of the facts within that incident to match the framing of another fact that's happening today. And he's trying to say this thing here that was happening with Joe Biden is the same thing that Trump is trying to do today. Republican governors rejected it. And why are they not rejecting Trump on this today? It's a very subtle technique. It still falls under the canopy of lying. But this is what he just did. Now, the question is, on everyone's mind is, does President Trump have the right to redeploy the state's National Guards? All right. He's going to sue the Trump administration. I'm going to answer that question because I'm going to show you how to do your own research in a bit. So he says some more things, and then we'll just listen through.
Problem: the National Governors Association under Governor Stitt from Oklahoma, who's chair, seems unwilling to stand with the rest of us governors.
So Governor Stitt is the one who recently approved the opening of Turning Point chapters across all the high schools in Oklahoma. All right. So definitely he's pro-Trump. He's calling these Republican governors by name. What is the purpose of that, you might ask? It is to drive a wedge. It is to say it is us versus them. He tells a lie, connects it to something happening today, claims that Republican governors are backing something that Trump that they rejected for Joe Biden, but now they're marionettes for Trump. And then he's trying to say, if they did it against Joe Biden, but they are supporting Trump on this, it is proof that they are lackeys of Donald Trump.
Kotek, Governor Newsom, and others to prevent Trump from taking our National Guard, federalizing them, and then using him either against us or against other states.
Another lie. He spent the last few minutes framing something that wasn't true, converting it to something that he wanted to use as proof that it is possible that Donald Trump can use the National Guard against the state. Why does he need the National Guard when he has the U.S. Army? Why? It's all lies to try to frame things to, of course, this is TDSBC. They will believe everything he says and they will regurgitate everything he says, even though these are lies.
Today, you sued to try to get a federal judge to block that deployment. It seems like we're going to have what will amount to a substantive hearing on that matter on Thursday, but here it is Monday night. It seems like in the meantime, there is reporting that some 200 Texas National Guard members are expected to fly to Chicago on military aircraft tonight. I know this is a very short-term question, but what is your plan in the short term for this interim period where you may have federalized National Guard troops on the ground before the court has actually ruled?
Well, the judge did warn the federal lawyers that if, in fact, they brought those National Guard and put them on the streets, that would be a really bad idea because there may be a ruling against them in just a couple of days. And I might add that if they do deploy them to the streets and then they are ruled against, I mean, how embarrassing to have to turn tail and run back to Texas 2 days after you've arrived in Chicago. So we'll see what they do. It would be improper for them to be deployed before there is a ruling, and we think that there will be a ruling on Thursday.
So here's my prediction. The ruling will go the way of the Trump administration. It's my prediction. And here's why I think that. So here's where I did my research, okay? I did research and I asked the question, what grounds would a president be able to federalize the National Guard? This was Grok, all right? I asked Grok, what grounds would it be proper for a president to federalize the National Guard? All right, and there's a bunch of not legal speak, but goodness, what am I doing? Okay, I'm going to have to scroll up. All right, so there are several reasons. First, the president may federalize the National Guard if a state's legislature requests federal assistance to suppress an insurrection within the state. So that means state has to request it. Two, to enforce federal laws amid unlawful obstructions. Would you call the stuff happening in Portland, Chicago, California unlawful obstructions, where citizens and, dare I say, immigrants and illegal immigrants join ANTIFA to obstruct the enforcement of federal law by the arrest and deportation of illegal immigrants, especially those who have committed crimes in the United States? Does this qualify? Because when we hear these things said on MSNBC, CNN, and they try to make it look like it is, they first of all open up with unconstitutional. And when you interpret the letter and spirit of the law, you come up with these kinds of things. Now, let's see what happens with the court hearings and what the results are. If a federal judge says he's blocking Trump, they escalate it to the Supreme Court, and Trump has won over 20 Supreme Court cases already. In just how many months of his presidency? In 9 months of his presidency, he has won over 20 Supreme Court cases. They have tried to block him at every turn, and he has won over 20 court cases. Governor Pritzker he's trying to, there's this false bravado, that Democrats put up to make the people who follow them believe that they are in the right, that they know what they're doing. He says it would be a pity if the DHS and the National Guard have to turn tail, after being deployed because of this court case or court hearing. Yes, the federal, judge, who may very well be an activist Democrat judge, could side with the state, and then it gets escalated to the Supreme Court. All of this is a time-wasting tactic. And while they are wasting the time of the American people, what they do on the media or in the media is they frame lies to make it look like President Trump is an authoritarian. Okay, if he was an authoritarian, every single time a federal judge told them to halt, he would have continued doing what he was doing. So he is not an authoritarian. That's not a very good authoritarian. All right, and then next, the third is to protect constitutional rights or suppress insurrection, obstructing justice. Already, I think number 2 is a good reason, which I think is what's going on in these blue cities. Okay. Now, you can go and do your own research. Look, whenever you see statements being made, and you can see how I kept pausing the video because he would say something and quickly slide it into something else that is not related. The only relationship between those two statements is the National Guard. The two cases were very different. But once you begin to, once you allow your emotions to surge while you're listening to politicians, especially when, you hear the opening conversation, they start out with an opening that gets you emotional. And once you're emotional, you're not thinking straight. And then eventually it begins to dull your ability to think through the things that are being said. Okay? It's very important. Calm down. If you hate, like right now, I honestly feel nothing for these guys. I'm irritated by their position, but I'm looking at Pritzker. I don't feel anything. I don't. But it's hard to say the same for people on the left. They see a picture of President Trump and they break out in hives. It's a mental condition, I guarantee you. Okay. So whenever you run into these things, do your own research. All right. Go to Grok, go to OpenAI, to ChatGPT, ask the question, is this true? For example, the situation where Joe Biden tried to co-opt the National Guard into Space Force, is that the same thing as Trump trying to send the National Guard to protect federal assets and federal employees in these blue cities? At face value, it's not the same thing. They are fulfilling exactly what they're supposed to do. We just got through a few minutes ago me going on a tirade about the UN being obsolete because it's not doing what it was originally designed to do. That's why I felt the UN should be scrapped. But the National Guard being sent by the president to states where federal workers and federal employees are being attacked, where federal facilities are being surged and attacked by ANTIFA, that appears to me like a proper use of the National Guard. All right, so before I read the comments in the chat, all right, I don't think there's any need to listen to Brandon Johnson. I don't. We've heard enough Chicago politics for the day. All right. So, okay, let's listen to Brandon Johnson. Let's wade into the breach. Let's go.
Today, we are signing an executive order aimed at reining in this out-of-control administration.
You see those trigger words? They use them whenever you listen to Democrats speak, especially the ones who are openly against President Trump's administration. You will always hear these trigger words within the first 5 seconds. Within the first 5 seconds, they open up with those trigger words to let you know, okay, get you riled up. So he starts out by calling the Trump administration what?
Out-of-control administration.
An out-of-control administration. If they were so out of control, every time the federal courts have said, you guys can't do this, they would have just gone right ahead to do the things that the federal courts said they couldn't do. So all of these are lies to get the listeners of this speech riled up and, to believe that President Trump is a fascist, an authoritarian. Oops, I went ahead and...
Today, we are signing an executive order aimed at reining in this out-of-control administration. The order establishes ICE-free zones. That means that city property and unwilling private businesses will no longer serve as staging grounds for these raids. And today we are signing an executive.
All right, so Brandon Johnson has decided to go against federal law, couching it as an executive order does not hide from the fact that he is simply saying that his city will not comply with federal law. How can he do that, you ask? Because he is getting cover from Governor Pritzker to go ahead and do this. We will see how this pans out. But you know what? I don't think this is constitutional. It's not, because you cannot say you want to create enclaves. These are enclaves. These are crime zones. You're trying to legalize a crime zone to say law enforcement can't happen here because we don't want you guys in here. You just created an enclave for crime. Already, Chicago is a dangerous city. And he wants to create these enclaves that will basically be places that will be run by gangs in the end. Because if law enforcement can't come in to enforce federal law, and the local law enforcement hasn't been successful at even bringing down the rate of violent crime, those his ice-free zones are really going to be something to behold. All right, so I'm going to be going into the chats. All right, we're going to be going into the chats. Let me know what you think of the story so far. We will be closing out with talking to the chat. We will close out this segment, and then we will basically I might just do a round, but we'll close out the live stream officially, and then I'll be considering putting out a video later today. So look out for a new video or two later today. All right. Let's see the latest chat starting from, let's see. With this issue, there's a major problem of federal versus states' rights. Trump is testing the limits, so there will be an equal and opposite reaction. Federal and states' rights, we will see. I don't expect, okay, like contrary to what people are saying, I don't think that the Trump administration is playing Russian roulette with the law to see if something fires when he pulls the trigger. That's not what he's doing. There are laws on the books, just like I showed you earlier. I showed you my research on certain things about what is established in law. And I got feedback from my research to say these are the things that would permit the president to federalize the National Guard. Okay, so there are laws on the books where, and what President Trump has learned is that he's going to get pushback every step of the way. And I think he's comfortable with that fact of getting pushback every step of the way. He's comfortable with it, and he's willing to fight every step of the way. This is 9 months into his presidency, and he has had to go to the Supreme Court over 20 times. Going to the courts isn't an indication that he's wrong. It simply means that the opposition have decided to use the courts as a wedge against this administration. Has there ever been a president that had to go through the Supreme Court 20 times within the first year of their presidency? Let me know in the chat. You would see that this is unusual. It is unusual not because President Trump is trying to test the limits. Is that the Democrats and blue cities and states are resisting. They are resisting simple common sense implementation of law and order. That's all they're doing. Canary King says, however, the attack on Nick Soto was plain wrong. It was. Chicago is also a federal versus state matter. I agree. However, when federal law enforcement and federal property is involved and federal law is involved, doesn't that trump state law? Doesn't that outrank state law? These are conversations that should be had with a clear head. This has come down to common sense versus insanity. The government is trying to get out criminal illegal immigrants. The state says, no, you won't. We want to keep our criminal illegal immigrants. The federal government says, this is federal law. We're coming to enforce it. The state says, no, you're not. We want to keep our criminal illegal immigrants. Meanwhile, crime in Chicago continues to spike. The state does nothing about it, tries to gaslight the citizens to claim that everything is fine, and then tries to blame President Trump for causing unrest in a city that is historically a city that is laced and layered with violence. Can you help me make sense of that? How does that make sense to anyone? That someone who is running a failed city when it comes to security and public safety has the gall to stand behind a lectern to dictate to the federal government how they have no right to come in to protect American citizens. How does that work? On which planet does that make sense? Okay, so you said, no, that's a violation of civil liberties. I don't know what you're referring to there. Maybe if you post that real quick and reference the fact you're talking about violation of civil liberties, I will read that out. Okay. All three statements about a fascist tendency. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, a dad playing with his son. People are so desperate to push a narrative. Yeah, and the more you look at this carefully and with a level mind, the more you see these lies pop up. The more you see people sharing stories that are not true, framing things to make it look like it's something that it is not. Like I said, people keep trying to send me stuff and say, hey, look at this. Do you still support Trump? I'm like, can I see the full story, please? I've learned to not quickly respond to things and say, let me see the full story. Can I see the story? Then I do my own research and say, hey, this is what actually happened. Because when one side has shown you that they are willing to lie regularly and like often and with impunity, and then they get upset when you catch them in the lie, that's a problem. You need to point this out, and you need to identify the fact that this side has shown that they cannot be trusted. If someone has lied to you 20 times in sequence, the 21st time should not be assumed to be a truth. It should be investigated carefully. You cannot just take what these people say because they said it. Oh, MSNBC said it. It must be true. CNN said it. Fox News said it. Do your own research. There's a bigger question. Why would blacks believe it? Perhaps there's a track record. A track record of babies being zip-tied. Is there a track record? Is there a track record? All right, we're on Grok. Is there a track record? Someone's gonna say there's a track record of babies being zip-tied. Is there a track record of toddlers being zip-tied by law enforcement? This question is coming from a statement that we made when we looked at the video where a picture of a law enforcement officer who was meant to be an ICE officer zip tying a baby pulled out of bed. And it turns out to have been a picture of a father and his toddler playing cops and robbers, which they carefully cropped out to remove the caption to make it look like this was actually part of the ICE raid. It's evil. It's witchcraft. It is evil. So whether there was a precedent, look, if there's a precedent to something, show us the evidence. Don't make stuff up. a toddler 1 to 3 years old. Orlando, Florida, 2019, zip-tied a 6-year-old's wrist after tantrum involving kicking staff. So the toddler or the child, not a toddler, the child was being violent. Family sued city for excessive force for not training their child. You see this? Canary King. What I'm about to say right now is why I don't advocate for immigrants to be in office in the United States, because you're going to hate what I'm about to say. You see, stuff like this is what makes me wonder about North America. A family does not train their child properly on how to behave in public. Sorry, I'm going to scroll up. A family doesn't train their child on how to behave properly in public. And in order to restrain the child, law enforcement has to zip tie the child. Okay? What's the alternative? Pray tell. What's the alternative? I know that there's a line. There's a line. And when it's excessive force means when you begin to use blunt force on someone being arrested. Okay? I don't subscribe to that. Blunt force on a minor, I don't subscribe to that. Blunt force on a child, I don't subscribe to any of that. But when you have a child that is being unruly in an Orlando school, and then in order to restrain that child, because the only other thing is to manhandle the child, and of course the law enforcement. So what should they do then? They should leave the child alone, which is what they eventually passed into law that says there will be a banning of children or of arresting children under 7, except for felonies. So you wait until the child gets so bad that they start committing felonies. Then you start trying to correct it. Good job. So that's why I said, look, don't make an immigrant part of, don't let them run for office, because we think corporal punishment. We go from 0 to 1,000. We're from Africa. So please, like I said, you would not agree with it. Okay. But there's evidence, and there is no such evidence of a toddler being zip-tied. Let me see. Blah, blah, blah. Now, there are cases here during unspecified children. Okay, so here, now, this is talking about hearsay and rumors. Right? So this is where that comes from. Governor Pritzker has, all of these aren't true. So this is where that rumor is coming from. Unspecified children described as little girls, some nearly naked. During ICE Operation Midway Blitz raid, agents zip-tied children, including U.S. citizens, to each other, separating them from parents and detaining them in vans, U-Hauls for hours. Witnesses reported kids being pulled from bed, admit. So you were in the house. The witness was in the house following ICE around to see that they were pulled from bed. So this hasn't been proven. There's an investigation. We will find out. So let's talk about this in a year and see if this was true or if this was a lie. All right. So there are gaps. 9 to 12, not a toddler. Immigration court. ICE agents zip-tied at least 3 migrant children alongside relatives immediately after their cases were dismissed. Video captured by attorneys. So they were connected to be honest, there's a conversation to be had. There's a conversation to be had about how these arrests should be done. These are strange circumstances brought on by strange border policies that this administration is trying to fix. we need to have very clear-headed conversations. Do I like the picture of children being zip-tied? No, I don't like the idea of children being zip-tied. Do I like the picture of parents abandoning their kids and taking off because they are trying to avoid being arrested by ICE? No, I don't like that picture, but it's happening. And so these children have to go into custody of the state eventually. There are reports of parents giving birth to children and leaving them at the border for a border patrol agent to find, so that that child will be raised in the United States. Look, there are so many stories. This world is broken. This world is broken. And we can go on for hours and hours talking about the what ifs and buts and stories that haven't yet been verified or confirmed to be true. Okay, until we have the facts of these cases, I can't even begin to explain the merits of restraining a child who hasn't been taught how to behave in public. He's attacking everyone around and has to be restrained. I can't begin to tell you how to do that. All right. But I would say restrain the children if it's necessary. All right, so I've answered the question about there being a track record. Trump is wasting his time on this issue. He needs to get back to rebuilding America, especially the industrial manufacturing base. I think he's doing both. He's doing both. He's dealing with the border. He's dealing with the cities that want to keep their illegal immigrants and are obstructing federal law enforcement. And he is working on deals to rebuild America's industrial manufacturing base. Yeah, I believe you can walk and chew gum, and his administration has been doing very well with kind of multitasking. Yes, they've dropped the ball on several things, but I think they've done okay in my books. All right. As a follow-up, you said this Fed versus state division is a waste of energy. President Trump can't abandon the promise, his campaign promise of deporting the illegal immigrants. That was what he ran on. He's doing it. The states are blocking him. They want to give the Trump administration an L so that they can have a chance to say he promised all this, he didn't do any of it in the midterms. That's what they're aiming for. But they will conveniently leave out the fact that they have obstructed him every step of the way. It's all about narrative. It's all about framing. And sadly, there is a largely uneducated voting population, and they will eat up that narrative. It's either he is being hostile and he's zip-tying children, or he didn't fulfill his campaign promise of deporting criminal illegal immigrants. That's who these people are. All right, we've had quite a mouthful. Thank you so much, Canary King. Thank you so much, Tara. You guys have made the live stream lively. Those of you who are watching or who have watched after the fact, please consider leaving a comment on the replay. Let me know your thoughts on the conversations we've had. I had a very spirited rant earlier. Which I don't normally do, but I think it's time for us to just be very passionate about the truth. Not passionate about what we think it is, but what it actually represents, what it is. And when we talk about things that are happening and how they affect the world, there is a time for us to, step up and speak up. By all means, we're going to continue having conversations like this. Federal versus state divisions are an important dynamic in the United States. Many countries don't understand it. The way states run in the United States is so unique. Each state runs like its own country. However, when you have things like illegal immigration that fundamentally affects the ability of decisions like who's going to be the next president of the United States is the federal law kicks in. If a state is going to put illegal immigrants on the voter rolls and allow them to vote in the next presidential election, if a state is going to bloat, and I'll use the word intentionally, bloat their census population by padding it with illegal immigrants who are not citizens in order to get more congressional seats, in order to, eventually become, basically affect the electoral college, federal law kicks in. That's how it works. And illegal immigration, mass illegal immigration took place for 4 years under Joe Biden. Joe Biden ran on it. The Democrats supported it. The Democrats who shut down the government because they didn't want the One Big Beautiful Bill to take away the subsidies for healthcare that were removed by the One Big Beautiful Bill. They wanted to keep those subsidies so that they could continue paying for free healthcare for illegal immigrants. They like to call them undocumented, but illegal immigrants. That's what they wanted. And then today, you have them coming up to talk about how the federal government is stalled because the Trump administration refused to provide health care for all Americans. It's all theater, it's all lies. I had wanted to cover the hearings, the Senate judiciary hearings, with Bondi being grilled by the Senate judiciary. It's all theater. I watched a bit of it and I was like, well, it's the same old. The Democrats trying to get one up on a Trump cabinet member and she slapping back with how they themselves are corrupt. And all of this is being live streamed and broadcast to every American and none of them goes to jail. It's the same thing, much of the same. All right, it's much of the same. And to be honest, it's like, well, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in watching that along with you because it's just the same old. All right, so let's look at the polling results before we close. We have a 50-50 split on the backup channel on the poll. We have you guys saying 50-50 that UN has always been anti-Trump and probably too much evidence. So it is a yes as far as the poll is concerned. It is a yes. And then the poll on the main channel, I'm going to have to open it on this other screen. Give me a second. We have a 73% saying that the UN has always been anti-Trump. 18% saying that they're unsure. All right. Yeah, today has been a fun live stream with my early rant. Thank you so much. Please consider liking the live stream, sharing the live stream. Consider supporting the channel by becoming a member. Join the membership. It helps us stay independent. Helps me to keep doing this every day. And if you're watching this after the fact, consider leaving a super thank. It's a financial donation to the video, to the live stream. It helps out a whole lot. Those of you who have been watching, let me know in the community post, what other stories you would like me to cover. I will be releasing more videos today, and I'll see you tomorrow, same time tomorrow, with other stories that we will be covering. Thank you so much. It's been great. And until tomorrow, God bless you.